Hi, this is Ben Sanford from Tribal Edge. I just wanted to take a minute and share with you a little section from our survival class. So this is our survival month, our core class, and one of the things that we do in the core classes is every core class has 3 standards in a way to, or 3 core concepts, three ways to look at the skill or the art that we're talking about. So in the survival class, I'm going to jump right to the second core concept. And the second core concept is something I refer to as the jungle laws, or the laws of the jungle. So referring back to Mowgli and the Jungle Book a little bit. So jungle laws can be seen as, first of all, what's a law? A law is like a universal constraint. It's something that's always true. It's constant. It applies everywhere in every situation. And when we understand the laws of nature or the jungle laws, we are able to put ourselves in different situations and face different environments and different problems and be able to solve those using the same laws. We only have to know a few things in that sense to build upon in terms of our actual tools and skills and techniques to survive in this case. So the jungle laws, there's 3 that I like to focus on in our class, and it starts with the concept of what we call entropy, or what is known as entropy. So entropy, if you're not aware of it, is a concept of it's the way that we measure the amount of energy in a system or the amount of order in a system. So, a fire always burns down. We never see a fire go from ashes and this, dispersed energy state or equilibrium state back into an organized fire. That just doesn't happen, So entropy is the measurement of the forces of nature as they are working their way towards an equilibrium in the system. So, the reason that you get hungry is because of the energy you're putting out in form of heat and exercise and movement into the environment, and that energy has to be replaced. If you don't replace it, you will also burn out and burn down or wind down, and eventually die. And so in survival, we want to be sensitive to the forces of entropy that are pulling on us and everything else around us. And we want to balance those forces and actually resist those forces. And that resistance is basically how I define stress. Stress is the experience of resisting entropy. So whether it's a good stress or a bad stress, it doesn't matter. Stress is the experience of resisting entropy. So, if I have to, if I just sit around and don't do anything, my body's going to degrade and, get out of shape and all that. So in order to prevent that, I need to actually stress my body in a good way and try and improve my fitness. If I'm hungry, I need to stress my body in a good way through digestion, and so these are all the positive forms of stress. Of course, there's negative forms too. If I'm sick, then my body is trying to resist the direction of the entropy is pulling, which would be towards illness and towards dysfunction. And so I want to pursue health and do the things that would allow me to be healthy, which is negative entropy, or the opposite direction. So all of that, resisting entropy as a living thing, everything's moving in that direction. Stars are burning out, the sun's burning out, everything's winding down to this state of just a constant, evenly distributed energy state, where everything's just kind of inert and still and can't do anything else because everything's been done. So to get around that game in survival, what we do is we borrow energy from our environment so that we can put it into ourselves. And in that process, we are increasing the entropy in the external environment. So we're externalizing the effects of reducing entropy in our own little sphere. So, there is a cost, and that's the cost of us existing. So that's where, we really can't get around taking from the environment, and that goes back to the first core concept, which is the caretaker. So anyway, how we do that is makes all the difference. We can become a parasite on our environment, and through ignorance and through selfishness, or through just not paying attention, being unaware of the dynamic systems that's going on, and we can knock things out of balance pretty quickly if we don't take the approach of the caretaker and consider how, when we are taking from the environment, we are externalizing that entropy, and what's the minimal effect we can have? How can we cause the minimum energy loss, right? So, and that's going to feed back to us. That's going to actually support us. So, it's going to keep us from eating up all the resources or burning all the wood and having to move on and make a hard to heal scar in the next environment. So, okay, so the three laws, entropy is just kind of one of the concepts there that the three laws are addressing. So as we are resisting entropy, which is actually another way to describe surviving, we're resisting the effects of entropy. If we want to kind of look at it in a real broad way that allows you to bring this into your everyday life, not just in surviving the woods. So if we look at survival as resisting entropy, and stress being the experience of resisting entropy, then part of survival is really about managing stress and reducing entropy. So there's three laws that help us do this, and this is not like nature's trying to be some cruel force that's out there trying to get you or anything. This is just the way things work. It's the way you work. It's the way everything works. And so once we kind of integrate with that and blend with that, then things end up working. So there's an integrity in the system, and you become part of what's going on around you. So the first law of addressing entropy is homeostasis. So homeostasis is this this dynamic equilibrium that appears to be a steady state. So by steady state, I mean if you were to take like a teeter-totter or a scale and put two things in that scale that balanced each other out, that would be a type of balance, right? That would be a static balance, and there's no movement. And you add something to one side and the scale is tipped out of balance and can't restore itself. In a dynamic balance, you have a flow of energy and resources that appear to be steady. It appears to be like a non-moving structure. So an example of that is actually your own body. So you are trillions of cells organized in a way that resembles you over time pretty consistently. And those cells are coming and going pretty quick. Some of them die very quickly and are replaced, and others are replaced pretty slowly. And there's a kind of a anecdotal saying that the body regenerates completely after 7 years. You don't have any of the original cells that you had 7 years ago. So how is it that you are still you, and look the same, even though none of the material and energy that was you is present? And so, it's really the pattern of you and the information of you from your DNA and whatever that is responsible for your structure and keeps you consistently appearing as you. But there's a flow, and you know this because, one, you eat, and you drink probably every day pretty much, and you go to the bathroom and you eliminate and you sweat and you put energy out in the environment. We're doing these things, so there's actually this trade-off that's going on. It's a exchange of energy and resources, material, matter, that's flowing through like a very slow river, and over time, if we could visualize this, you would see, the amount of material that's coming through and that makes you at any one moment. So that's an example of homeostasis is the dynamic balance that is you. And we can get more specific because there's many homeostatic functions within your own body. One is your ability to stay warm, to regulate your temperature. And so that's really important in survival. That becomes one of the core things we have to do in survival. And that involves shelter and fire and all these things. Another, as I mentioned, is food and nutrients, nutrition. Another is hydration and water. And those are the big ones. In our survival class, we focus on what Stalking Wolf referred to as the sacred order, or which was shelter, water, fire, and food. Those are kind of the core tools that we always rely on in that order. And so equilibrium can be seen in each of those, or homeostasis can be seen in each of those. And so homeostasis is a process of maintaining this dynamic balance through feedback loops, through sensing, whether or not you are in balance, and when you're not, making some change and getting feedback as to whether or not that change is working. And then, because if you just were thirsty and you're like, I'm thirsty, and you keep drinking, you could hurt yourself unless your body sensed, okay, that's enough, let's cut it off. So you have this sensor and this feedback loop that tells your systems that equilibrium has been reached. So we're doing this in so many ways all the time. Your metabolism is doing it in hundreds of ways. And, so all of these homeostatic processes are going on in your body and have a huge, they are kind of the basis of survival. When you're sick, it's because one of these homeostatic processes are out of whack. And when it goes to an extreme, it can, create really negative, kind of spiraling processes that can take you down into death. Think of hypothermia. There's certain margins that once you pass, it's really hard to get you back from. If you get too dehydrated, you can't really, recover. So the survival skills are all about addressing these core needs of homeostasis and responding to them. So, okay, but homeostasis being, one of the basic laws, we could call it balance if you want, or dynamic balance, but it's not alone. It's not just that. So survival is more complex than that. There's strategy involved, because there's a limit on to how much energy you can put out. You're a finite being, and if you race around like crazy trying to control your homeostatic needs, keep things in balance, you're going to run out of energy, because there's just only so much time and so much energy and so much, and some environments won't allow you to do that either. Maybe you're in a very limited environment. So the second law that we talk about is, and this is the one that keeps homeostasis functioning, is called adaptation. So often known as the law of survival. All of these are, in a way. So adaptation is basically your ability to respond to whatever's going on and adjust your behavior, and change yourself and your thinking and your approach to fit the need that you're in, or the situation or environment you're in. So, and that's really what's meant by fitness in survival of the fittest, by the way, is the ability to fit into or refit into the new needs of your environment. And survival of the fittest, whoever can be the most adaptable, is the most resilient in any situation. So, we see some animals that are extremely resilient that way. They're very adaptable. I've seen coyotes, for example, in every environment. They can do fine and great. They thrive in the desert. I saw one in the middle of Death Valley. They thrive in the snow and the very, very cold areas. Here in the Northwest, where it's wet, they thrive. So it's because of their adaptation, their ability to kind of flow with the environment. Some of the famous ones, the ones usually they're considered pests because they're so abundant. Stuff like rats, is another one. Cockroaches, crows, seagulls. Some of these animals are, well, maybe seagulls are a little more limited, but these animals are super adaptive to their environment, and they're always great teachers for us for adaptation. So being able to not be too rigid in your thinking and in your planning and in your stuck in your ways, being able to adjust and adapt and be flexible and flow with what is, that is how we make the changes necessary to maintain homeostasis. Okay? So first one, homeostasis. Second one, adaptation. Third one, also a famous law of survival, which is conservation of energy and resources. So because you're the finite being that you are physically, you can't just run around and go crazy all the time and expend your energy without thinking about it. You actually have to plan this out and be very wise and strategic in how you spend your energy. So just like money is a great representation, actually, of all of these in a way. So what we want to do is be able to maintain homeostasis by adaptation with as little energy as possible, putting out as little energy as possible and as little resource as possible, right? So that is where this conservation thing comes in. It's doing the first two. It's achieving homeostasis and adapting, but it's doing that from a kind of a wise, patient, strategic perspective, and multitasking, doing things that I want to say shortcuts, but not shortcuts that will catch up with you later. It's actually doing things that will take time and energy out of your efforts. So maybe looking around for spending a little more time getting to know the place you're at and looking for the best place for a shelter, instead of just wow, it's getting cold, I'm going to start building a shelter, and then you just start going wherever you're at and just may find that you get halfway through it and it's just impossible. You don't have enough resources. You need to look around and find a better spot. Or you get halfway through it and you realize you did it in a very dangerous place. Maybe there's some sort of dead tree above you or something like that, right? So it's conservation of energy is this, you don't rush. There's urgency sometimes, but hopefully you're maintaining your pace in a way that you're extending your awareness beyond your behavior, so that you can notice things before they become problems and conserve your energy that way. So put together, I just refer to these as the laws of the jungle, and these are all ways of maintaining homeostasis through adaptation while conserving energy, in order to manage stress as you're resisting entropy of the natural forces of life around you, of nature. So there you go. That's kind of a quick version of our second core concept in the survival class, and I look forward to training with you in the future. Take care and keep going.